पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Hello, this is KRITESH. I am here with my friend SANSTAV to tell you about a very known topic. All Indians celebrate Republic Day on 26th January every year. But most of us doesn't know about the real history behind this day. Republic Day is a national holiday in India. It honors the date on which the Constitution of India came into effect on 26th of January, 1950, replacing the Government of India Act, 1935, as the governing document of India and thus turning the nation into a newly formed republic. The Constitution came into effect on 26th of January, 1950 with a democratic government system. 26th of January, 1950 was chosen as the date for Republic Day because it was on this day in 1929 when the Declaration of Indian Independence, Purna Swaraj, was proclaimed by the Indian National Congress as opposed to the dominion status offered by the British regime. Background. Before getting into the core of the Indian Constitution, we have to know about the background of Indian history. Political system and history. Present-day India is a federal state with 28 federated entities divided among 7 unions. Its system of government is parliamentary and based on the Westminster model. India first came into contact with the West in the early 18th century when it was annexed by the British East India Company. In the mid-19th century, it fell under British colonial rule. The colonial administration in British India, or British Raj, as it was also called, was headed by a viceroy who also accumulated the title of Governor-General until 1947 when his struggle for independence, marked by a widespread non-violent resistance movement, resulted in independence from the British colonial empire. Constitutional history and development. Prior to the Constituent Assembly that convened in 1948 to draw up the Indian Constitution adopted in 1950 and still in force to date, the fundamental law of India was mostly embodied in a series of statutes enacted by the British Parliament. Key among them was the Government of India Acts of 1919 and 1935. The Government of India Act of 1919 passed as a measure of gratitude for India's role in World War I. The primary purpose of this act was to expand native participation in the government. Key reforms of the act were the establishment of a dual form of government with limited powers for the major provinces. The Imperial Legislative Council was transformed into a bicameral legislature for all India. Finally, the Act established the position of a High Commissioner with residence in London to represent India and the United Kingdom. The Government of India Act of 1935. This act was adopted in response to opposition and criticisms from the National Congress of India to the 1919 Act for doing too little in terms of granting autonomy. Its key provisions included abolition of the dual form of government or diarchy and the granting of a larger degree of autonomy for the provinces, establishment of a Federation of India, which never came into force though, introduction of direct suffrage and extension of the franchise to 37 million people from the original 5 million. Membership of the provincial assemblies was altered so as to include more elected Indian representatives, who were now able to form majorities and be appointed to form governments. The establishment of a federal court. The Constituent Assembly of 1948 and the Constitution of 1950 and 1946, the British decided to examine the possibility of granting independence to India. As a result, a British cabinet mission was dispatched to India to 1. Hold discussions with the representatives of British India and the Indian states in order to agree on the framework for writing a constitution, and 2. Set up a constituent body and an executive council. Following this mission and the ensuing negotiations, a constituent assembly was indirectly elected by the provincial legislatures comprising 278 representatives and 15 women. Parties represented in the California were the Congress Party, which had the majority, Muslim League, Scheduled Caste Federation, the Indian Communist Party and the Union Party. The California met for the first time in December 1946 and by November 1949 the draft constitution was approved. The constitution went into effect in January 1950 and the California was transformed into a provisional parliament. The constitution, which is still in force, has been amended over 90 times, making it one of the most frequently amended constitutions in the world. It is also known to be one of the longest and most detailed in the world, with 395 articles and 10 appendixes called schedules. Extensively modeled on Western legal and constitutional practice, its key features include the establishment of a federal system with residual powers in a central government, a list of fundamental rights, a Westminster-style parliamentary system of government. Let's know about the key timelines in the 1948 constitutional process. 1946 Britain decides on to grant independence to India and cabinet mission is dispatched to India to discuss modalities for transfer of power. August 14, 1947 Proposal for creation of committees is tabled. August 29, 1947 Droughting Committee is established. December 6, 1947 Constituent Assembly formally convenes for the first time, following elections, to start the process of writing a constitution. November 4, 1947 Draft is finalized and submitted. 1948 to 1949 Constituent Assembly meets in sessions open to the public. November 26, 1949 Constituent Assembly adopts final draft, making it official. January 26, 1950 Entry into force of the new Constitution celebrations. B.R. Ambedkar is known as the father of Indian Constitution. The main Republic Day celebration is held in the national capital, New Delhi, at the Raj Path before the President of India. On this day, ceremonious parades take place at the Raj Path, which are performed as a tribute to India, its unity in diversity and rich cultural heritage. The Delhi Republic Day Parade is held in the New Delhi, and is organized by the Ministry of Defence. The parade showcases India's defense capability, cultural and social heritage. 9 to 12 different regiments of the Indian Army, in addition to the Navy and Air Force, with their hands march past in all their finery and official decorations. The President of India, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Armed Forces, takes the salute. 12 contingents of various paramilitary forces of India and police forces also take part in this parade. Ideology of the Indian Constitution. Ideology could be defined as a set of ideals or beliefs, which forms the basis of the economic or political system. Ideological beliefs not only give hope for a better society, but also recognize, accept the existing inequalities in society for its people to introspect about their progress in the future. Even though our Constitution is a lengthy document, its ideology is well entrenched in its preamble, revealing the nature of the newly independent nation. The ideology in the preamble not only declares our freedom, but lays a strong foundation for a society based on equality, justice and liberty. The objective resolution moved by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1946, which was adopted by the Constituent Assembly in 1947, is almost reflected in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. It clearly lays down the path to be taken by the future Indian state to create a strong, united and inclusive country, eliminating all forms of discrimination. Do you know what is beating retreat? The beating retreat ceremony is held often, officially denoting the end of Republic Day festivities. It is conducted on the evening of 29th of January, the third day after the Republic Day. It is performed by the bands of the three wings of the military: Indian Army, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force. The chief guest of this function is the President of India. On the eve of Republic Day, the President of India distributes Padma Awards to the civilians of India every year. These are the second highest civilian awards in India after Bharat Ratna. These are given in three categories, viz. Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri, in decreasing order of importance. Indian Constitution is considered one of the foremost social documents in the world, having defined what we want to be as a nation. Though some parts of the preamble were modified through the 42nd Amendment, no other words can better describe the soul of India. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. The Indian Constitution established India as a country of equals, gave everyone a voice, provided reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and abolished the system of zamindari, laying the foundations of a new India. The fundamental rights, given in Part 3 of the Constitution, guarantee civil rights to all Indians, and prevent the state from encroaching on individual liberty while simultaneously placing upon it an obligation to protect the citizens' rights from encroachment by society. 7 fundamental rights were originally provided by the Constitution: right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, right to property and right to constitutional remedies. The right to property was removed from Part 3 of the Constitution by the 44th Amendment in 1978. The final draft of the Indian Constitution, which is the longest in the world, was adopted on November 26, 1949, after almost 2 years, 11 months and 17 days. It was legally enforced on January 26, 1950, the day that we celebrate as Republic Day ever since. On 26th of January, here are 26 facts that you probably didn't know about the Indian Constitution. My friends tell me that I have made the Constitution. But I am quite prepared to say that I shall be the first person to burn it out. I do not want it. It does not suit anybody. But whatever that may be, if our people want to carry on, they must not forget that there are majorities and there are minorities, and they simply cannot ignore the minorities by saying, "Oh, no. To recognize you is to harm democracy." I should say that the greatest harm will come by injuring the minorities. 2. The Constitution was originally written in Hindi and English. 3. The English version has 117,369 words. 4. It is the longest constitution in the world. 5. The Constitution wasn't typed or printed. 6. It was handwritten by Prem Bihari Narain Razada. 7. Each page was decorated by artists from Shantiniketan. 8. The original copies are stored in special cases. 9. The Constitution declares India a sovereign, socialist, secular and democratic republic. 10. Assures its citizens justice, equality and liberty, and endeavors to promote fraternity. 11. December 9, 1946, the Constituent Assembly met for the first time. The Constituent Assembly was the first parliament of independent India. 12. It took nearly 3 years to write it down. 13. 2,000 amendments were made to the first draft. 14. November 26, 1949, the final draft was ready. The Constituent Assembly sat for a total of 11 sessions. 15. January 24, 1950, signing of the Constitution. 16. January 26, 1950, the Constitution was legally enforced, passed by the Constituent Assembly. 17. January 26, 1950, the national emblem of India was adopted. 18. Constitution of India, a bag of borrowings. 19. Based on a series of statutes enacted by the British Parliament. 20. Borrowings from the French Constitution. 21. Borrowings from the USSR. 22. Borrowings from Japan. 23. Borrowings from Weimar Constitution of Germany. 24. Borrowings from the US Constitution. 25. Basic structure of the Constitution stands on the Government of India Act, 1935. 26. Amended only 94 times in over 60 years. What are the importance of a democratic constitution? 1. The people have the right to choose their own form of government. There are many different types of government in the world. Different countries need different forms of government to suit their particular circumstances and traditions. The people of a country therefore must choose the style that they think right for their country. Rulers have no right to impose a form of government different from the one that the people chose. Democracy means not only electing politicians but also choosing the form of government. If the people have not had the opportunity to choose their own form of government, then democracy does not exist. As point 3 will explain, the people generally codify these choices in a constitution. 2. The people have the right to put enduring limits on their government. Once the people have chosen their form of government, then the rulers may not thereafter change it. By choosing the form of government, the people have the right to limit the government officials, who may not depart from the rules laid down by the people. The people typically put several kinds of limits on officials. First, they divide power among different parts of the government. They give the president certain powers and the judiciary other powers, and so forth. Once the people have marked out this division, the officials may not shift it. The president may not, for example, try to intrude on the domain of the judiciary by deciding court cases himself, and he may not intrude on the domain of the legislature by making laws. This division of power between different parts of the government has a technical name: separation of powers. Second, they sometimes divide powers between the central government and more local governments such as provinces. They might, for example, give the central government power over the military, and they might give local governments power over local schools. Once the people have made this division, neither the central government nor the local governments may try to change it. The local government may not, for example, try to take over the military, and the central government may not try to take over local schools. This division of power between center and periphery has technical names. Some people call it federalism, and others call it autonomy. Third, they require that the government respect the people's individual rights. Different constitutions protect slightly different collections of individual rights, but the trend of world history has been to protect more and more rights, not fewer. Commonly, constitutions protect the individual right to religious practice, self-expression, criticism of the government and protest, political organization, non-discriminatory treatment, and fair criminal procedures. Once the people have protected these rights, the government may not invade them except in truly exceptional circumstances spelled out by the people in the Constitution itself. Fourth, they require that the government shall be accountable to the people through regular and free elections. Frequently, the people detail the rules governing elections in some detail: when and how often elections will occur, who may vote, who may stand for office, and so on. It is especially important to make rules providing that elections be free, fair, and transparent, or else the vote counters, rather than the voters, will be choosing the representatives. It is also especially important to provide for multi-party democracy, or else the people will not be making a choice between real alternatives. Once the people have made these rules, government officials may not contravene them, as for example, by staying in office longer than their term, or disenfranchising certain people, or intimidating voters, or refusing to register political parties. This set of rules governing elections also has a technical name: electoral law. 3. Once the people have chosen a form of government and limits on the government, They have the right to entrench those rules in a constitution. The people create and limit the government. The government is like the servant or the child of the people. In the constitution, the people give instructions to their servant, the government. A constitution must therefore be as clear and specific as possible, or else the instructions will be vague. For that reason, the constitution is typically a written document. The term constitution literally means creation or foundation, because in the constitution the people create and found a government, which has no legitimate power apart from the people's will expressed in the constitution. The people must therefore take certain steps to ensure that the constitution functions as a set of instructions to the government from the people. First, the people must play a dominant role in the process of drafting and adopting the constitution. Ideally, the constitution should be written by a constituent assembly elected by the people, with heavy representation of traditionally underrepresented groups such as women and ethnic minorities. The people should have opportunity for input both before and after the draft is written, and the draft should be adopted only if it passes a referendum vote. Second, the constitution must be entrenched, so that the government may not freely change it. If the government may change the constitution by ordinary legislation, then the constitution will place no effective limit on the government, and the point in the constitution is to allow the people to place enduring limits on their government. Therefore, it should be difficult to amend the constitution, and any amendment should be adopted only if it passes a referendum vote, perhaps with a requirement of supermajority support. Third, the people must create a constitutional enforcement mechanism to ensure that the government pays heed to its instructions. Unless the constitution is actually enforced, it is only a paper tiger. Therefore, the people must not only create limits on their government, they must also create a mechanism or mechanisms to enforce those limits. One of the most important enforcement mechanisms is the holding of free and fair multi-party elections. If the people feel that their government is violating the constitution, hopefully they will vote the government out of office. But elections are seldom sufficient by themselves. Elections occur only periodically, and in between the government might be committing large-scale constitutional violations with impunity. The people might also have a limited understanding of the meaning of the Constitution and/or of the facts of government wrongdoing. Therefore, it is generally thought important to create a full-time professional watchdog with great constitutional expertise and access to information about the government's behavior. Though technically part of the government, this body must in substance exist outside the government, so that it can scrutinize the behavior of office holders. Ordinary people must also have access to this body so that they can challenge government wrongdoing experience in their daily lives. Typically, this body is a court, but it could also be an independent council or a commission. Now it's about to end. The Constitution of India has several distinctive features. It is the lengthiest constitution in the world, and it is a combination of rigidity and flexibility. The Constitution provides for a quasi-federal. It means a federal set-up where, despite having two clear sets of government, central and the states, more powers are given to the central government, set up with a strong center. There is a clear division of powers between the center and the states. The Supreme Court of India is the apex court of India, which will resolve the disputes between the center and state or between the states. India has a parliamentary democracy. The Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister enjoys the real powers and is responsible to the Parliament. The Indian Constitution provides for fundamental rights which are justifiable. 10 fundamental duties have also been added to the Constitution. The directive principles of state policy give a concrete shape to the welfare concept. Thank you for watching our video.